Good sticks, everyone. Welcome to the Captain Avalanche Fancast, your unofficial source for all things Colorado. Wow. Wow. I have not biffed that one in a while. All right. Anyway, redo that one. Good sticks, everyone. Welcome to the Captain Avalanche Fancast, your unofficial source for all things Colorado. What the fuck is wrong with me?
You want to say Colorado Habs?
Colorado Avalanche hockey. Okay. Good sticks, everyone. Welcome to the Captain Avalanche Fancast, your unofficial source for all things Colorado Avalanche hockey and more from a fan perspective. Hosted by me, Captain Avalanche Cory, and our Jumbo Joe #1 fan, Dom. Now, we're no insiders. We're not inside the locker room face-to-face with our favorite players, but we hope to create a relatable and welcoming environment because we're just like all of you listening, fans. Fans with a deep passion for the game of hockey and, in this case, the Colorado Avalanche. I got that on the first try. No issues there. That intro was done in one take, just like all the other ones have. Isn't that right, Dom? One take. That was it.
That was it. One take.
One take. Well, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. If you're listening to this on your actual Thanksgiving day, we appreciate you so much. And we hope that you're able to sit down for some nice time with the family and that instead of talking about politics at the dinner table, that you're talking about hockey, the only thing that obviously matters. Or maybe you're talking about the NFL because that's the only sport that's going to be on Thanksgiving Day. So I guess we're all sentenced to football jail that day rather than the sin bin of hockey. Well, speaking of which, we decided that we need to revisit those power rankings. We haven't looked at them in a while. So since the start of the podcast, we haven't done any sort of power rankings. So for this week's episode, I implored Dom to put together how he thinks the league is shaping up. It is found that 75% of teams in a playoff spot by American Thanksgiving managed to keep it. And, well, the Avs are currently there, thankfully. Like all of you, this is my first time hearing these rankings from Dom, and I fully intend to furiously debate every single one. But before we get into those, Dom, since tomorrow is Thanksgiving, let's share what we're thankful for, at least in terms of our hockey teams. Would you like to go first?
Absolutely. Thank you, Cory. And I'm thankful, firstly, to all of you for tuning in, be it tomorrow and listening to us on your Thanksgiving or whenever you get a chance to listen to the podcast. It's been a wonderful experience getting to bring this content to you with Cory. So I'm grateful to all of you for listening and giving us the energy and the gumption to keep going every week. But as far as with the Sharks, I am grateful for, well, let's state the obvious. I'm grateful for Jumbo Joe Thornton, and May his jersey rest in peace up in the rafters, that number 19, never to be worn again in San Jose. Grateful for him and all of his long time, 15 years with the franchise. I'm grateful for MacLeod Celebrini, whose development is tracking very nicely, who had quite the game against LA just a couple nights ago that I can't wait to share more about as well. And Cory, I'm just grateful to have the Thanksgiving holiday. And as you said, politics can all go to rest and we can all just have some food together as a family and enjoy this great season of giving back. So that's what I'm thankful for. How about you, good sir?
Well, absolutely. I'm certainly grateful for the chance to do this podcast. It was a crazy decision, and I'm so happy that you decided to say yes, because this has been a highlight every week, and I can't wait till school finishes up and I can lock down on hopefully even better research and analysis when I don't have to stress about assignments anymore. But in terms of the Colorado Avalanche, I'm thankful for the fact that they are above 500. I hope they are able to keep it that way for the rest of the season. I'm thankful that we have 3 of the best players on earth on our team. It is a genuine privilege to get to watch them every single night. And I'm grateful to our management, Joe Sakic and Chris McFarland, who I know are going to do a good job to help this team migrate through what has been a very challenging season. Yeah, I'm not thankful for the fact that there's no hockey games on tomorrow, but we'll take the excess amount of games that are on tonight.
Absolutely. And you made me think of one more. I am thankful that the Sharks aren't in last place. But yes,
Definitely.
you're absolutely correct. I am definitely someone who subscribes to the three F's of Thanksgiving from food, family, and football. But I do believe we need to add some H's on Thanksgiving with some hockey Thanksgiving games. If we have Halloween games, we should have a Thanksgiving game. It would be so great. Pick like the Flyers and I don't know, another team that has some red or some orange in their unis. Do Flyers against Ducks. Let's have an orange on orange
The Orange
like
Bowl.
hockey. The Orange Bowl. Yeah, let's have that. That should be the real Orange Bowl. Screw college football. That is the Orange Bowl right there. The Ducks versus Philadelphia every Thanksgiving. Tell us in the comments if you think that's a good idea.
Truly, that'll be our poll question this week. Do you want hockey games on Thanksgiving? There is a reason why, though, and I do have it as my fun fact for this week.
Well, then we can't steal the thunder from the fun facts later
I
on.
know.
So, Corey, is it that time that I should start to go through the power rankings?
I think it is, Dom. Go ahead and present it however you think is best. I will tell you that every single one is wrong.
Well, naturally, because every single one in the preseason rankings was wrong. Actually, no, I stand corrected. There's one team that is still in the exact same spot where I put them in the preseason, but we can get to them in a long while because they're going to be near the end. At the top, we're going to start going from top down. The top, I feel like I can run through a little bit quicker than as we get to
Absolutely.
the middle and the bottom. There'll be more time for some analysis, but naturally, at the top are the Winnipeg Jets. I know this isn't your favorite to hear, Corey, but the team still has the most wins in the league and has come out shot out of a cannon to start the year. They are regressing some now. They're falling back to earth a little bit. More losses than wins in their past 5 games, if I do recall correctly. I believe it's 3 losses, 2 wins in their last 5 games. So they're stabilizing. They're coming down to earth, like I said, but they are still by far the best team in the NHL this year. I have them moving up 8 spots from their preseason rank of 9. In
Eh,
second place, I see the Carolina Hurricanes. I'm sorry, Corey. Would you like to add
No,
something
no,
for the
yeah, just
Jets?
briefly. I mean, I'll always give credit where credit is due. And one gripe I had against the Jets was in the early goings, they really weren't playing the greatest team. So it's like, well, yeah, of course they're gonna do so well. Just wait until they play a real team. Well, they've played real teams, they've played playoff contenders, and they've continued to win those games. So as much as it annoys the piss out of me, they're still winning, despite in spite of everything everyone has said. So I think rightfully at number one, and I think that's I'll interject. I'll let you roll because there's a lot of teams to get through.
No worries. I think it's a great note that you added that. Whether or not they're our favorite teams based on where they are in the rankings, we have to give credit where credit is due. And with that in mind, I do have the Carolina Hurricanes out of the Metropolitan in the second spot. They also moved up 8 spots from their preseason rank of 10. They have been the best team in the East so far this season, although I feel like we are going to get to a few more teams in the East here shortly. Number 3, I think by far the biggest surprise of the season. This team has been on a tear and actually look really good and could be silent, quiet cup contenders, are the Minnesota Wild. They are the biggest mover, moving up 23 spots from my absolutely and unintentionally disrespectful preseason rank of 26. They, in fact, have swapped spots exactly with the Nashville Predators, who have fallen all the way down to 29 in my power rankings, but I'll get to them shortly. The fact is, though, the exact movement of 23 spots between each of those teams, and they have literally flopped in the power rankings, is quite interesting, quite surprising, especially when both reside in the Central. So I thought that was a interesting note that was completely unintentional, might I add. Looking at number 4, also from the Metropolitan, I have the New Jersey Devils, and they've had some ups and some downs, but I believe they've also warranted the moving up of 8 spots in the power from our preseason power ranking of 12. They've been playing overall really consistent, high quality hockey. They did obviously drop a game to the Sharks, much to my enjoyment, but overall have been really consistent and look like a contender in the East.
Let me tell
Rounding
you,
out the top,
Devils
what?
fans are mad as hell because they feel their team has not been getting consistent coverage for as good as they have been. And frankly, I kind of agree. I don't see the Devils being talked about a whole lot. So there you go, Devils fans. For the 0 of you who listen to this podcast, Dom has given you some of that credit, and I agree with where he's ranking you guys.
Well, maybe after this episode we won't have zero, and we'll get a lone devil watching in and listening, because we'll give credit where credit is due, and they really should be ranked as a top 5 NHL team in my opinion. Moving on to number 5, I have the Toronto Maple Leafs. They've been consistent all
Mm.
year. They moved up 6 spots from a preseason rank of 11. As it turns out, my 9 through 12, or 9 through 13 even, they were all roughly 6 to 8 spots too low. So keeping moving on down, in the 6th spot, I have the Vegas Golden Knights. It pains me to say this,
How
but
could you?
they look like the best team in the Pacific right now. They continue to play consistently and win games, and even through injuries at times. So, Rico, I know you're happy. Here's your
Fuck you,
shout out.
Rico.
uh, Down in 7th, we have the Dallas Stars, and I think this is actually the best spot for Dallas. They're still really good in a much more competitive Central, so I have them as the 3rd ranked team out of the Central, which the Central Division has surprised me a lot to start this season, with just the shakeup of the order of things. I did not expect the Wild to be as good. Nobody expected the Jets to be as good, and nobody expected the Predators to be as bad. So that's just the quick little synopsis there. The Dallas Stars did move down 3 spots from their preseason ranking of 4, but I still have them comfortably in as a playoff team and expect them to be a contender when it comes to the springtime. In the 8th slot, and this might be a little high now, and I'll get into it more later with the injury to Alexander Ovechkin, but I do currently have the Washington Capitals ranked 8, moving up 10 spots from their preseason rank of 18. I'll be honest, I assumed that in a competitive East where the wild card is always fought between 4, 5, 6 teams, I thought the Capitals could be in that hunt and maybe on the outside looking in. But they've started off as one of the league's best teams this year. Now, the reason I can't move them up higher, because I could potentially justify having them ahead of the Stars, for example, is because of that Alex Ovechkin injury. And I am concerned that since the loss of Ovi to his injury, he'll be out 4 to 6 weeks. We have seen them lose right away, so they might be a candidate to start sliding back down the rankings depending on how they can perform without their Russian jet flying on the ice for them. Corey, anything to add as far as Alexander Ovechkin's impact on the Capitals?
Well, I mean, the dude has found the fountain of youth. I think I've already touched on it, so I don't need to dwell on it for too long. But I mean, he was leading the league in goals at certain points. And it doesn't surprise me when you have a guy like that on your team, it's going to have a negative impact. But to the Capitals' credit, I don't necessarily think they're going to totally slide back down into oblivion, because they've had great contributions from across their lineup, and some of their young guys that they brought in, like Connor McMichael, have really excelled coming in here. So I think they'll be okay, but they just won't be as good.
I agree. I think there is some slight regression expected, but I do expect them to stay in a playoff contending spot until Ovi is back in the lineup. Keeping it moving, number 9, I have the Florida Panthers, and naturally I had them as my preseason number 1. I still consider them to be legitimate cup contenders. I just think overall at the start of the season, their consistency has been lacking at times, and some of these other teams have surprised or just amazed a little bit more. So maybe I'm a little lower on them, but for example, that's a team that the Capitals could slide behind here even in just a week or two. But I wanted to give Washington their due, and I do believe they've earned the right to be ranked ahead of Florida. Keeping it moving, in number 10, the Metropolitan has 4 out of the top 10 teams. Yes, you heard that correctly, 4. The New York Rangers, and I had them originally ranked preseason team number 3. They are currently sliding down 7 spots. I think the Rangers just need to work on finishing games. I think when you have Shesterkin in the net and you have all of the talent in front of them, they've been to the playoffs, they've been deep in the playoffs. This is a legitimate team that should be considered a contender. And they just haven't started the season on their toes necessarily. It hasn't been their best hockey. I think their best is still in front of them. So not their best, but certainly still a playoff contending team in playoff position as we speak. I believe they are in the wild card, however, though. I would expect them to potentially climb past the Capitals by the end of the season. But as of today, we currently have to rank them 10th in the league. Do you think that's too high or too low for the Rangers, Corey? Or is it just right?
Man, I don't know. I think it actually might be, if we're going just off of like recent power rankings, I think it might be a little too high just because they have started to slide a little bit. I mean, they are actually tied with the Avs for the same number of wins and are only 1 point ahead. They've kind of been dropping some games and they've been falling pretty hard. When they're playing against other contenders, they have not looked as good and they've been getting a little bit dominated around the ice. And evidently, management's already hitting the panic button. I don't think that's necessary, but they're already suggesting things like trading their captain, Jacob Truro, which was already in the pipeline before the season. But now they're even talking about Chris Kreider being on the trade block. So I think it might be a little too high. I do think they are sliding a little bit as they're just not looking as good against other playoff contending teams.
Well, naturally, I do agree with the slide, and so perhaps let me ask you this question: which team would you rank higher, the New York Rangers or the Calgary Flames for power rankings as of this time of the season?
Man, I don't feel like I can give a proper ranking only because I've watched literally zero Calgary Flames hockey other than a couple, games here and there. The Calgary Flames did beat the New York Rangers, but obviously you can't make a power ranking just based off of a singular game. But to Calgary's credit, I don't actually know how they're doing this good when they literally have no staff left after they traded everyone last season. But I think you can attribute some of their success to really strong rookie campaigns from their goaltenders. So I'll go with that, and Jonathan Huberdeau sucking just a little less this season. But I can't necessarily say one over the other because I don't feel fully qualified to make that assertion, only because I haven't watched their hockey as much. I've only really had time to watch a lot of Avalanche hockey, obviously. So I don't want to make an
Well,
assertion.
that's fair enough. I have seen some of the Flames hockey, and I have been pleasantly surprised. I have them down as a surprise cup contender and currently the most legitimate challenger to the Knights in the Pacific Division. So as we speak, I would probably move them up from where they're currently seating at 11 to swap spots with the Rangers at 10, simply because it is close and that head-to-head would become the tiebreaker at that point. So I did not take the head-to-head into consideration previously. So let's just in live time put Calgary at 10 and New York at 11. So Calgary moving up total of 12 spots from their preseason ranking of 22. And really the underdog Canadian teams that we were wondering if they could make the playoffs this year, talking Montreal, talking Ottawa, Calgary has really given the best statement for themselves to be a playoff caliber team and are currently, like I said, sitting in the 2 slot in the Pacific right now and in a very loaded
Crazy.
Western Conference. So they're getting wins against good teams. Currently in position number 12, moving up 2 spots from their preseason rank of 14, are the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I don't feel like I need to say a ton here, Corey. I know you'll have plenty to speak about the Lightning in relation to the Avalanche
Mhm.
later on. I think Vasilevsky is someone who can single-handedly drag a team up, but they still have a lot of depth on Tampa Bay, even without players like Stamkos they lost in the offseason. So, without further ado, I currently have the Avalanche ranked at number 13 in the league.
Yeah, I think
So,
that's fair.
back to back with Tampa Bay. I thought they were close coming into the game when the two of them played, and I did take that outcome as a tiebreaker between the two. At 14, we do have the Edmonton Oilers out of the Pacific. They are currently down 12 spots from their preseason ranking of 2, which, they started the season poorly, so they've actually been on the climb. Perhaps that isn't representative of where they are exactly right now, but over the course of a whole season, based on when we last did the power rankings, taking in all the games into consideration. Also, the important thing to note with Edmonton is it's still been sloppy. They don't seem nearly as dominant.
No.
So I would not put them ahead of a team like the Lightning or the Avalanche, or quite frankly, the Flames are ahead of them in the Pacific for a reason. So I couldn't rank them over the Flames. So that's where they find themselves in position 14. In the 15th and 16th slots, we actually see 2 more teams from the Pacific. So the Pacific Division is right in the middle in mucking it up at the bottom of the playoff board with the Los Angeles Kings and the Vancouver Canucks. So one of those teams, the Kings, is up 1 spot from their preseason rank of 16 and are performing about how I would expect. They are winning winnable games, losing losable games, and sometimes a bit of the reverse. They probably still can't hang their hat on the Knights if they ever had to play them in the playoffs again. But they are still looking like the best team in California and have been winning enough to be in the playoff position, holding a 3 seed rather than being in a wild card. So that is something where I believe they're technically ahead of Edmonton right now. I think Edmonton is on the up, so I flopped their rankings there, but I would still have the Kings in the playoffs if they started today. And then the Canucks, I have a number 16. And so you might realize here that, wait, Dominic, there's 9 teams from the West and 7 teams from the East. That's not 16 teams for the playoffs. Well, I'm just saying where their power rankings are. I would take either of those Pacific teams over number 17, the Boston Bruins, who would be the final team from the Atlantic to be making it into the playoffs on the eastern side. Looking at that top, in this case, 17, Corey, do you see anything in that 14 to 17 range of the Oilers, Kings, Canucks, and Bruins that maybe I should reevaluate?
Let me tell you, Dom, it's ass being in the Central Division because every time the Avalanche win a game, they can't make up any ground on the people ahead of them because they're in the same division as the 2 wagon teams to start the season. At least with the Metro, they only have to deal with the Hurricanes. Yes, the Caps are on the rise, but they only have to deal with the Hurricanes, where the Avalanche have to contend with 2 amazing teams inside of their own division, let alone their conference. It's fucking tough out here, bro. This is shit. Not to mention Dallas is in that division. What the fuck? That's all I have to say. Everything else.
Yeah, no, I would say that when we've talked about the Eastern Conference, the Eastern wild card being very competitive, very tough to get into, I think this year it's actually going to be the Western Conference that shows that we have a lot more of those competitive games, higher just point totals for teams. When you have the Jets and the Wild at the top, you still have the Stars, the Knights, the Flames outperforming expectations, and everybody expects the Oilers and the Avalanche to make it come playoff time, right? So that leaves a thin line for teams like the Kings, Canucks, Blues, or even the Seattle Kraken trying to slip into the playoffs based on who's next up on the Western side. It's going to be tough to get that wild card this year. I do, like I said, have the Bruins at 17. There's a part of me that would rank them lower, but I don't think they should have fired their coach. His record says enough. I don't have to say anything else there. And the players said enough when they said they didn't play good enough in front of their coach, and they are the reason he got fired. And clearly, whether or not it's the right thing to do from an organization to fire a coach that was as effective as the previous tenure in Boston, but the team has responded. Whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing to do, it doesn't matter. The team has come out with a vengeance in these most recent games, playing in front of their new coach, and I think are a team on the rise in, like you said, a bit of a weaker Metropolitan this year, especially with Washington potentially going to slip. And you also forgot New Jersey is in the Metropolitan. So they technically...
So no, the Metro's got it tough too, I guess.
The Metro has it tough, but I would still argue not as tough. It's not like they have to deal with... Well, I guess the Rangers are in the Metro too. So the Metro is actually pretty tough. I would say the Metro...
Yeah.
I'd say the Metro is probably the second toughest division. I would still hang the hat on Central for being the toughest, just when you do have Winnipeg and Minnesota, 2 of the top 3 teams in the league. And then Dallas is still a top 10 team as well. So I'd say those 2 divisions are definitely punching it out for the best in hockey right now. And then probably the Atlantic is third, and the Pacific, despite all the depth, has actually, I think, would still be ranked last currently. Yeah. And maybe there's room for debate there. But when you have Calgary as the number 2 team, that tells me the division is not started off well. Vancouver has underperformed. Los Angeles continues to be mediocre, playoff caliber, but mediocre. Edmonton is nowhere near where anyone expected. I think Seattle is the definition of mediocre. And Anaheim and San Jose, don't get me wrong, they are in this. But that tells you something. If these 2 teams that were far and away the worst teams in the league last year, absolutely double-digit points behind the next closest teams. The fact that they're only 4 points behind Seattle and are actually competitive tells you something that's yes, they have improved, but I think the overall average of the Pacific has also come down slightly compared to maybe where we had it preseason. Moving along, because there are so many teams and I'm just halfway done, I currently have the St. Louis Blues 18th, and that is a team that is hard to rank. They have 10 wins on the year with 12 losses and 1 OT loss. So when I wrote this rankings, they were actually at 21 points in 21 games. So they were at NHL 500. So that's a team that maybe since I wrote these out slid just a little bit, but they're winning some winnable games. They want to be in the hunt and are deserving of moving up 7 spots from my preseason rank of number 25 for the Blues. In the 19th spot, I have the Buffalo Sabres moving up 2 spots from their preseason rank of 21. And I didn't give Buffalo enough credit. Maybe I'm not giving them enough credit now. I need to see it to believe it, and they always have a way of choking it and not making it to the playoffs, in my opinion. Correct me if I'm wrong, Corey.
No, you're not alone in that opinion. That's pretty much how everybody feels. So, me included.
So they might hold the last playoff spot currently in the East on the same number of points as Boston, but with 1 more win in 2 fewer games. I just think the trajectory Boston's on now with that fire in their belly and the pedigree of that organization, I trust Boston to move forward over the course of the season more than Buffalo. And I'm not fully bought into Buffalo. I know we could keep hamping on it, but the teams they're losing to, I mean, they lost to Montreal, which is one of the worst teams in the league. They smashed on Ottawa, but it's Ottawa, also not a great team in the league. They won in California, winnable road trip games for sure against LA is probably the best of the bunch, but it's hard to say. The past month, there have been good things to see from Buffalo, which is why I want to move them up. But I'm still a little wary. They had that blowout win at the Rangers 6-1, which is really what started to get attention. But again, the Rangers have been a little bit sloppy out there. So I don't know if that's as much Buffalo as it was New York playing poorly. Moving along, Seattle I have ranked at number 20. That's 8 spots up from where they were previously ranked at 28. They're staying in games. They're not anything special. But, they're 11-10-1, so they are above 500. That's not something that a lot of teams can say, and they are playing against good teams. They're playing good teams well. They lost to Colorado to start November. I know you're very happy about that, Corey. But they followed that up with 4 straight wins, including a win over Vegas, which is a big win. They played a good game, closer than it would say on the scoreboard against New York. Lost a close one in Los Angeles, 2-1. So they're in games. They are not this team that is getting their doors blown off or really winning by a lot typically, other than against bad teams like Nashville and Montreal to start the season. So they're a hard one to rank other than calling them perfectly mediocre right there at the 20 slot. The Philadelphia Flyers I currently have at 21, up 6 spots from their original ranking. I do think this team is on the up if they can fix their goaltending woes. If Philadelphia can figure out its goaltending and not be like the worst team in the league for goaltending, they could be a playoff wildcard team. But they have to stop conceding easy goals.
Oh, Dom, don't you dare take our title of the worst goaltending in the league. The Avalanche proudly hold that one.
Well, last time we spoke, we had talked about how the Sharks could not win a shootout against what was then the worst goaltending in the league of Philadelphia. So I guess I hang my hat on that saying...
I thought it was Pittsburgh that was the worst goaltending.
Was it?
You know what?
Well,
I think that's what I said, but I'm gonna go hop on edge right now. Go ahead and keep rolling here.
No worries. And maybe they're not the worst goaltending in the league, but... I guess they're 26th in goals against. They have a really good penalty kill, but they're playing better. I think having Matvei Michkov back and playing, he's at 17 points on the year. Konechny is at 26. Like, they have some star player power that is keeping them in games and having some really exciting flashes of playoff caliber hockey. So I think they just need to clean up on their defensive end. Both if it's not the goaltending, then on defense as well, just needs to improve. But I think Philadelphia is worthy of moving up a few slots. Right behind them, also from the Metropolitan, I have the Columbus Blue Jackets up 7 spots from their preseason ranking. They are the surprise team I'm happy to keep rooting for and keep bringing you guys updates each week. They currently rank 6th in the Eastern wildcard race at 20 points, but that puts them only 3 points behind the last wild card spot, which is a tie right now between Buffalo and Boston. And they have tied for the least amount of games in the East at only 20 games, while other teams have played as many as 23 or 24 in the case of New Jersey. So I do believe they are a team that is on the up. They have 20 points in 20 games, so they are at NHL 500, worthy of being given that credit rather than being put in the basement dwellers tier that they were preseason ranked. Right behind them is another Metropolitan team, and very close on on one more point in two more games with a lot of OT losses is the New York Islanders. I have them down 3 spots from their preseason ranking of 20. When I wrote this, they were at NHL 500, but I don't buy it. They followed that up with another loss. Having 5 OT losses is telling me that you can't finish games. You're 8, 9, and 5. The opportunity to set yourself apart and be a playoff team is there, and they clearly haven't taken it. So I'm putting, even if they're technically a point ahead of Philadelphia and Columbus as we speak right now. Yesterday, when I wrote this, they were all tied. I would personally have them behind, seeing as they have played an additional 2 games than Columbus as well. In the 24 spot, I'm sad to say that I had to drop the Utah Hockey Club 5 spots. It's been a little bit too much Arizona. I've been disappointed by how Utah's played in some games. I was really hopeful for them. I'm really high on them as a team. They're just below NHL 500 at 21 points in 22 games and currently sit in the 5th spot in the Western Conference playoffs. So they're right there with the Kraken and the Blues just outside, behind Edmonton as well. But when you have Edmonton, Colorado, and LA currently holding up the wild card in front of you, it's tough to see them breaking through and making it to the playoffs, at least right now. They could only beat the Canadiens 3-2 just last night, and you would expect to beat up on the Canadiens a little bit more. They did, however, beat up on Schittsburg 6-1 a couple days earlier on the 23rd, so, give them credit where credit is due. It's that team that's just a little too inconsistent, which, again, reminds me a lot of Arizona. Now that we're through the top 24, do you have anything to add for maybe those teams 20-24, Corey?
I am quickly doing some number checking on all the goaltenders' combined save percentage and goals against average for Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and the Avs. So give me just a second. You just keep rolling here.
Alrighty, well, in number 25, I have the Anaheim Ducks. And this team has had a lot of offense, and they might still be lower in the Pacific, in the second to last spot in the Pacific, but they're sitting on 19 points in 20 games. They've been really competitive. They've shown a lot of flashes of talent. Trevor Zegras is actually sometimes showing up now instead of always just being missing compared to what he was drafted for. And if I want to raise the Sharks in the rankings, I have to note the Ducks have won both head-to-head games against the Sharks, unfortunately. So that is something that I want to give them credit. They, I think, are a team that could beat any of the teams ranked below them right now. And so that's where we see them up 6 spots from their original rank of 31 to be at 25. In the 26th spot, and I'm really disappointed in this team dropping them 11 spots from my preseason ranking, are the Detroit Red Wings. And I really thought Detroit was that team that could be mucking it up, trying to get in that Eastern wild card, especially this year with the Eastern wild card looking a bit more attainable compared to previous seasons. It only takes 23 points to get to right now. That's easier than what we see in the Western Conference. So I really thought Detroit could be that team. And so far, they have really let me down. They're only on 20 points currently. They still have not hit the double-digit win marker. They've lost some winnable games. They, to be fair, have won some very losable games, but not a good November overall from the team in Detroit with the Red Wings. Right behind them are the Ottawa Senators, down 3 spots from their preseason rank of 24. To be honest, I haven't seen a lot of the Senators, and what I have seen has not been pretty. I gave them credit, maybe too much credit, by giving them 24, putting them on that bottom edge of mediocre, and I think they're more bad than they are mediocre. So that's all I have to say about Ottawa. In fact, depending on the outcome of tonight's game with the Sharks, I would move up the Sharks, who currently sit in 28th. Never would I ever feel so excited, did I think, about saying the Sharks are in 28th in the power rankings. But you know what? It's not 32. So that's progress, boys. We're up 4 spots. Big win versus LA recently, not last night, but the night before now. And legitimately ahead of some of these lower teams. It's not just me being a Sharks homer. They are legitimately better than the remaining teams of the Predators, Blackhawks, Canadiens, and Penguins, in my opinion. In 29th spot, I already mentioned it briefly, but I have the Nashville Predators all the way down 23 spots, swapping with where Minnesota was. Actually, no, they didn't swap with Minnesota, but they are also down 23 spots. I misreported that earlier. Um, Nashville is technically ahead on a head-to-head with the following team in 30th, the Blackhawks. So that's where I have them ranked ahead of the Blackhawks. I think the Blackhawks have some more upside, but Nashville does have the head-to-head victory, so that is the tiebreaker for me. They've really high expectations have been met with no results. We've talked about this. They're going to be a team to watch next year once they've built more chemistry. But based on what we've seen this year and continue to see, I feel like UC Saros, while still being a great goaltender, has had a slight regression compared to expectations. Maybe the expectations were too high. I don't know. But I have to put Nashville down in the number 29 spot. As I said, Chicago is in number 30. I'm ranking them purely on record because they are winning games they should lose, i.e., when they played against Florida, they played a really good game against Florida and looked like the better team. But they are also losing games that they should probably win over these other poor teams, such as the Nashville Predators. So, tough team to rank. Need to keep them near the bottom of the division. They've also beat the Sharks, but I think right now the momentum is firmly in the hand of the Sharks, so I feel okay ranking them ahead of the Blackhawks and not just going purely on head-to-head. Number 31, I've already touched on it briefly, is the Montreal Canadiens. Another one of those Canada teams, just like the Ottawa Senators. I had it at that 23-24 range. But they have been, I would probably say they're the worst team in the NHL if it wasn't for Schittsburg. But that's really all I have to say about the Habs. It's been a bad season. It's going to be a bad season. I don't know who the top prospect is, but Montreal is clearly looking ahead to next year. And I'll go in the tank later, but Montreal is tanking in the meantime, trying to get a good draft pick. And in last place, that team that I originally had just outside the playoff bubble, it is Schittsburg. They beat San Jose, and much to my chagrin, but they have been wholly uncompetitive, unlike the Sharks. The Penguins, I love Sidney Crosby. He's a great player, class act, but when he is getting into fights with players on the opposing team, yelling at the refs and getting thrown out for really not doing much of anything, that tells you that something's going wrong. If somebody like Sidney Crosby can lose his cool a little bit, that tells you that the whole general culture of that organization, they are on a slippery slope to the bottom. And even if they technically have more points than the Canadians by 1 point in 2 extra games, I just don't buy it. I don't see it. They just look bad. Of course, as I say that, tonight they're up 4-1 on Vancouver, but that is following up back-to-back blowout losses to Winnipeg and Utah. And really, their only win in their past since 11-11, their only win was against San Jose 4-3 in that OT shootout that we talked about. So you are correct, Corey. It was Pittsburgh's goaltending that you were referring to. But they've been blown out by Columbus, by Dallas, by Carolina. I mean, they're not winning good games. I mean, they beat Montreal head-to-head, so I guess maybe I should consider them ahead of Montreal, but
No.
it's been ugly all year long, barely winning games. I mean, they've beat Montreal twice technically, but still, I think even beating Montreal twice, I would take Montreal against any of these teams rather than Pittsburgh. So,
But I mean, yeah, it's like how are they losing, right? And I think that's really what you have to consider, because even the worst teams are not getting blown out by the playoff contenders every night. I mean, even when the Sharks played Dallas, they only lost 4-2, and one of those was an empty netter. So, I mean, every team that the Penguins are playing, whether they are a bottom feeder, a middle of the pack, or a playoff contender, they're getting blown out by everybody. So it's not just that they're losing, but it's how they're losing, and it's abysmal. And it's a crime that they are doing this to Sidney Crosby, who decided to stick with the organization, which who knows if he's regretting it, but my God, it's just awful. You can't even bear to watch. I feel awful for Penguins fans.
I feel awful for Penguins fans. I feel awful for Sidney Crosby, and I know he has turned down the opportunity in the past, but I'm gonna set you up right here for one, my guy. Crosby to the Avalanche at the trade deadline. Talk about a cup-winning team in the making. Put him out there with McKinnon, Makar, Rantanen, the whole lot of them. Would that not
Unstoppable.
be just chef's kiss,
Unstoppable.
unstoppable, beautiful hockey lineup? Like, I know he has turned down the opportunity, or supposedly turned down the opportunity. I don't know what actually happened in the GM's offices, but I feel like the opportunity for him to be traded to a playoff caliber team, and he has talked about it being the Avalanche if he would consider a team, especially with his relationship with McKinnon. I I think if there was ever a year for it to happen, if there was ever a time for him to move on from the Penguins that their fans could also accept and honestly wouldn't blame him, this is the year.
It's a wet dream. I doubt that it'll ever happen, but man, we can truly only hope that it could. And especially at the end of his career, I'd love for this team, our team, the Avs, to give him one more chance to win a cup. And I mean, I've seen mostly that the general vibe from Penguins fans is they would not fault him for going to the Avalanche, especially. So I feel like he should consider it, especially with how things are going right now.
Absolutely. Well, with that in mind, I have finished the power ranking. So let me know in the comments if you think I was too high, too low, too kind, or too rude to any of the teams. I'm happy to take all other opinions into consideration here. But Corey, if there's nothing else you want to add, or I'll let you take the floor here to add anything to the power rankings before getting into your Avalanche coverage.
Yeah, the only thing, I did some digging into the goaltending for the three teams we talked about, and it looks like Philly actually does hold the edge for the worst goaltending in both this is save percentage averaged across all of their goaltenders and GA averaged across all their goaltenders, and this is not adjusted goals against average. I don't know how that's calculated, so I can't talk about it. But Philly is sitting at a .866 percentage and 3.71, it looks like, for their goaltenders. I think I'm reporting that wrong. Sorry, I am reporting that wrong. 3.19 for their goaltenders. I think the Avalanche's stats, while a little worse for goals against average, are a bit skewed because their statistics on Hockey Reference is still taking Capo Kakinen into account when he's obviously no longer with the team, and he only had one game that was pretty abysmal for his sample size. So I do think that's skewing the overall stats a little bit, but it's pretty bad. And Tristan Jarry is far and away the worst. He's letting in a 4.6 GAA, so pretty abysmal.
Yeah, you can't really, I mean, we see it every year, but there'll be sometimes those goaltenders. I mean, the Sharks have seen plenty of them in the last few years. Those goaltenders with over a 3.0 GAA, that's not good. It's not a winning recipe to give up more than 3 goals per game. But when you have a goaltender giving up over 4.5 goals per game, I mean, Jesus, like, what is he still doing? I mean,
well, they sent him for a stint in the AHL, and he came back and is literally no better.
Well, that is damning evidence right there that if you can succeed at the AHL but can't succeed at the NHL, there's clearly a talent gap there. And even if you can go to the AHL and succeed and get your mind right, sounds like a candidate to be playing internationally here in a year or two.
Yeah, it's tough. And I mean, I feel bad for guys like that, but otherwise, thank you for your power rankings, Dom. I'm not actually in opposition to really much of what you said, so yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear I could do overall justice to everyone in the league. I mean, no offense to any of the teams other than maybe Schittsburg. And yeah, that's glad to hear that you are in overall concurrence.
He means all the offense, and if you're upset at Dom, he wants you to get bent, and he will not take any of your opinions into consideration, even if you leave them into the comments, because Dom knows that he's the only one that's correct. So just remember that, everyone.
Get bent like a Flex 56 hockey stick.
That's right, baby. Well, everyone, we're going to actually revisit a segment that I did a few episodes ago, but I'm trying to give it a bit of that Avalanche twist. Earlier, I did something called the good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, I wanted to make it a bit more Avalanche focused, a little bit different. So as I pondered names, I tried to change it up as much as I could, but ultimately this just rolled off the tongue the best. Everybody, welcome to the good, the bad, and the Avalanche.
Do an avalanche sound on the post.
I'm just writing down my timestamp there. So with this, to explain it, the good and the bad are black and white, and they're exactly what they should be. And really, I figured, why have a bad and an ugly when I can just have a bad? Well, what's the Avalanche portion? Or, sorry, well, for the good, what is going well for the Avalanche? What are they doing right? And then for the bad, what's going wrong and where can they improve? The Avalanche portion can kind of be either or. It's storylines emerging around the team, common themes that we're seeing game after game, and things that you need to know. So, starting off with the bad. Oh boy. I like to start with the negatives in order to end with the positives. And all things considered, from this recent road trip that the Avs endeavored upon, there are absolutely more positives than negatives. And unfortunately, recency bias has everyone only speaking on the negative, despite the fact that the Avs went 3 for 4 on this rather challenging road trip. So let's just get this out of the way. I'm just going to roll straight into it. I'm going to Steve Dangle this bitch, everyone. So here we go. Take a deep breath. This is all the negative. The Avalanche at the Lightning on 11/25/24. Yes, I can nitpick things from the other 3 games between last week's episode and now, but really, this is the thing that I need to emotionally blow up about because it was honestly disgusting. You hope for a nice revenge game like what you had against the Caps, but that is absolutely not what you got against the Bolts. I actually stopped taking notes at the conclusion of the first period, as I said I would only keep writing, only if things improved and changed drastically. However, it only got worse, and there is nothing more I needed to write or say that hadn't already been written or said that didn't persist through the entire game. Goaltending was bad. I don't disagree with that. Juice's start was downright awful. And what's terrible is I've noticed that if he isn't locked in right away, he's off for the rest of the night, and that's exactly what happened. But to put the blame of this absolute fucking meltdown on only goaltending is fucking stupid. I am pounding my keyboard as I wrote this down. This PK has to improve. It is their biggest glaring weakness. 27th, now 28th is unfucking acceptable. For fuck's sake. This team can outscore a lot of problems and nearly had a 2-on-1 in the PK just to give up the easiest rush chance of all time back down the ice. This team found a way to have an even worse start against the Lightning than they did at home. First of all, you let Cooch score, and fuck, that is so annoying. But the possession in this first period, or in the first period, was shit. I did everything I could to try and find the amount of time that the Lightning held on to the puck, and I couldn't. But let me tell you, the Avalanche touched the puck basically fucking never the entire first period. The Lightning did exactly what they did at Ball Arena, skating fucking circles around a tired-looking Avalanche team. 3 goals on 7 shots is fucking shit. I can't blame Juice on the first one, but the other 2 are just unacceptable. I did not want to lose to this stupid fucking team again. I said it once, I will say it again. You cannot, repeat, cannot allow yourself to be put in a hole against a team with a superior goaltender, because it makes coming back 10 times harder than other teams, because it's not as simple as offensively taking over, because that goaltender, when the defense fails around them, is going to be the guy to make the unbelievable game-stealing saves. The special teams on both ends were awful because no one could keep a puck on their stick or really do anything possession-wise. There was a lack of zone support and forecheck when the Avs broke into the zone. So if a shot went wide or there was a strip, no one was there to support, and the Lightning just got it without any fight. Also, the pucks need to get on the fucking net. You've trained your entire existence to hit the net, and they just couldn't. The one good thing is the Stars also had a third period meltdown and lost in regulation to the Canes, so the Avs didn't lose any ground on them. But what was tragic was watching Justus Onninen's confidence utterly shatter. You could visually see it, and it only got worse with every goal that went in. Frankly, how dare you do that to both your goaltenders, honestly? They worked so hard to gain some consistency and actually play so you can win, and the team around them just hangs them out to fucking dry because they're skating around feeling sorry for themselves. Blowout wins happen to everyone. What upsets me the most about this game is the Avs stopped trying. Once it was insurmountable, they just dropped all effort and didn't even bother. That's the most unacceptable part to me. Play like you're one goal back and you're trying to tie it up. To utterly give up, no matter how shit your game is even more embarrassing than the score. It was so bad that Rachel Toss, an Avalanche color commentator and game analyst, was visibly and audibly pissed in the intermission reports. To quote her, "I don't know how a team goes from scoring 7 the night before to playing like this." She stated she threw papers around the studio, and this was just the second period intermission. "I turned the game off after the 8th goal, and I at least have that luxury and choice. She and the other analysts don't, so I can only fathom what she said after the game's conclusion." I'm done now.
I wish I could say something to assuage your pain and your anger, but really it's all well founded. It was an ugly fucking game. It was a poor performance, and when you are a professional athlete, a competitor, to be visibly quitting on a game and just playing for it to be over rather than actually going out there and playing. I've talked about how hockey players, with the risks they take, they deserve to be paid more. Anybody who quit in the Avs does not deserve to be paid, period. Like, you're out there doing a job, go play your fucking best. That's what you're paid for. Juice had a bad start. The PK was horrible, but that's no excuse to not play the game. There are guys in the AHL who would love the opportunity just to play against the NHL quality, to wear that NHL jersey. There are guys who are undrafted who are sitting on the couch who would like to do that. So don't disrespect them by not finishing the game. Play every minute to your best. That's just rule number 1. That's just the code of honor.
What's pissing me off, and mind you, I was not reading a lot of the other articles because I like to have my own opinions to myself and not speak too much on what others have said. But just based on titles alone, so many people just like to scapegoat, "Oh, the Avalanche goaltending rears its ugly head again in a terrible loss to the Lightning." Yeah, the goaltending was shit. It absolutely was. The numbers will show you that, and the performance will show you that. But the only 2 people who seemed to care in this game were Ivan and Alexander Georgiev. I could give a shit about his stick smash. He fucking deserved to smash his stick because everyone around him let him down. The dude is flying around the ice trying to stop whatever the infinite amount of shots the Lightning are throwing at him. And then the media has the fucking gall to blame the goaltending and the goaltending only. Yeah, I can blame Juice for letting in fucking 5. But goddamn, how dare you only say it's the goaltending when the rest of the team played like utter fucking garbage? But
yeah, it's poor analyst work to just blame it on the goaltending. I mean, yes, the goaltending was garbage, but the whole team was garbage. It takes a team to let in that many goals. It's not just a goaltender.
Exactly. And I mean, despite the fact that I yelled through this, I still want it to be analytical. And I want people to understand that, just like all of you, I am emotionally invested in these games all the same. Most of the time, before we record these, I've had time to process them and write it all down, so it's not nearly as frustrating. But, I mean, this is by far the worst loss of the season for the Avalanche. This is just awful. So I can only hope that they put this behind them, they learn from it, and they come out strong tonight against the Vegas Golden Knights because, well, I'll mention it here in a second, but the end of this November is honestly tougher. So they need to make sure that they lock it down going forward. But Dom, I'm ready for some positives. Are you ready for some positives?
Oh, you know me, I'm always ready for some positives, but hey, I'm glad that you could have the space, the time, because I know just from when we were texting about the game, you had some fire in your belly about this game and needed to get it out. So I'm really glad that you could get it out, and I'm sure many Avs fans feel the same way as you and will very much empathize with that first game you covered.
Yeah, it hurt. Well, everyone, it's time for the good. As already mentioned, the boys in Burgundy and Blue triumphed in 3 of their 4 road games, and I was honestly a little surprised. Philly was the only non-playoff team of that bunch, and I honestly thought the Avalanche would struggle against the reigning Cup champ Panthers, especially with how much trouble the Cats gave them last year, but that was far from the case. Goaltending performed admirably, particularly against Philly and the Capitals. Both Juice and Georgiev worked hard despite late pushes by all three teams. The Avs scored victories against, all three teams the Avs scored victories against. Across those three games, the goalies walked away with an average .920 save percentage. But on offense, I had a hunch that the Avs were making the second period their best, and I was correct, as they're out shooting 230 to 159 and outscoring 30 to 20 their opponents across the board in the middle frame. They do get dominated in the first frame especially, but it's on the rise. The Avalanche had continued to look like a team that is not ever outclassed against the opponents that are sitting at the top of the standings. They're able to hang with the best, and even if they're going down, they keep their cool and remain steadfast in their pursuit of a victory. That is the case with every player on the ice, including goaltenders. In the Avalanche's 3 victories on the road, the goalies, even if letting one in, looked calm, cool, and collected. And the trust from the players in front of them allowed Colorado to battle back if they needed to. To be honest, they wouldn't have beaten Washington had it not been for Georgiev, who had been stringing together strong victories up until the Tampa game. Washington was not a game that was a high-scoring affair, but one where they were locked in defensively, and their goaltending bailed them out on multiple occasions when they made mistakes. Now, against the Panthers, the Avs once again exploded and demonstrated their offensive ability to take over a game when they need to. It's remarkable how quickly this team can turn a game around with a flurry of goals, and they're getting contributions across the lineup. The Avs had 6 different goal scorers across this game, including 2 goals by defensemen, and 11 different players collect points. This team can no longer afford to be top-heavy with the consistent injuries constantly occurring. And this game demonstrates to me that they're not.
You're absolutely correct. The Avs have adapted and aren't just this top-heavy roster, and I think in the long run, that's what we've seen from teams like Florida winning last year. You need to have the ability to roll 4 lines. You can't just be top-heavy if you want to win a cup. Even in their cup-winning year for the Avs, their lower lines were showing up and scoring points for them. So I think it's going to be good for them in the long run. And something you hit on there is, I know the easy story, the popular story is hitting on Georgie for his poor time in net to start the season, but he has been the backstop, the savior, as you said, with the Caps game. And the game against Tampa Bay was not his fault. He came in relief into an already lost game with players in front of him who had given up, and then was removed once again just because, you know what, let Annunen take the loss on his record for getting them in such a bad spot.
You summarized it so perfectly. Thank you. That is literally exactly it. I'd like to point out Georgiev had a .966 against the Caps, by the way.
Yeah, that is unreal. That is Hellebuck level numbers.
Yeah. But also I guess one thing I forgot to touch on, just to briefly jump back to the Tampa game, is Miles Wood smashing his stick and then hitting Jared Bednar with it accidentally. Thank you, Miles. That definitely helped the situation. But it's neither here nor there. It's over at this point. I'm sure Jared Bednar was super happy going into the locker room after getting hit in the face with a stick.
Oh, I'm sure Miles also had some extra hell to pay in practice for that. Coaches have no problem, in my experience, making extra lines, laps on the ice, what have you. We could give a call back to the Miracle movie, and if you've seen it,
I know
what
exactly
I'm talking
what
about
part you're
with the
talking
lines.
about. Yep.
Exactly. So for all of our audience out there, if you've seen it as well, I guarantee you know what I'm indicating, and I guarantee you Miles Wood had something like that to pay.
Well, back to the Panthers game. The second period goal by Jonathan Drouin was utterly gorgeous. Like, oh my God, it was such a genius play by Cale because everyone was looking at him to shoot it, as was Bob. But right in front, JD intercepts it and just tucks it backhand into the net. He just calmly skates across. No one sees him, loses his man, and just boop right into the net. Utterly gorgeous. Well, another player I'd like to highlight is Nikolai Kovalenko. He is a player who I always see putting in the extra effort in races, battles. It doesn't matter. Even in races or battles that you know he'll lose, he still gives it everything. And I think he knows his time might not be permanent. And he fights every night to show the management and coaching why he needs to be here. And I think that touches on your point nicely, Dom, where you have these AHL guys who would die for this spot. And I think Kovalenko, even in these terrible games, is doing everything he can to show management that he deserves his spot on this roster.
Nothing to add. You really hit the nail on the head.
Perfect. Well, finally, to end off our good vibes here, the Avalanche were setting up smart plays, and they're just getting pucks and bodies to the net. It's causing chaos, causing screens, and it helped them solve Bobrovsky quickly because the Panthers are a team that does not go away easily. So you need as big of a cushion as possible, especially going into the third period. This is a theme that I hope they continue to employ. The Avalanche have always been seen as a finesse team, but right now they need to find something that works. A combination of what happened defensively against the Caps and what happened offensively against the Panthers is, to me, the ideal way to play your games.
Now that I agree 100% and can add, you need defense, offense. We talked about this on a previous episode, about 3 or maybe 4 phases if we want to count goaltending as its own phase. You got to put it all together if you want to be a Stanley Cup winning team. And you can have pieces and you can make it to the playoffs, and that's all well and good. But at the end of the day, you lose a final game of the season, you go home empty-handed. So they got to put it all together to be successful. And they've shown that they have the elements of all of the necessary components. It's now just a matter of getting them all to show up in every game with consistency.
Absolutely. And I think if anything, that has been the Avalanche's kryptonite this year across all things is just consistency. Consistency with goaltending, consistency with scoring, consistency with health. It's consistency. So this has been a very up and down season, which reminds me, I don't have this written down, but I would just like to say to everyone out there, whether you be media or fans who thinks Jared Bednar should be fired, you are stupid. Nothing more to be said there. You are stupid. If you think that in any way Jared Bednar is the problem, you could not be further from incorrect. This is the man who managed to turn this team around in 5 short years and lead them to a cup with his system. You change what's happening right now and hand this injured ass team over to a guy who's new to try and employ a new system with these players. It'll be utterly disastrous, I guarantee it. Thankfully, I've seen more on the positive end of admiration for Jared Bednar for navigating what has been a very difficult season for everyone with how much these Avalanche have been injured and still finding ways to generate success despite, I think, maybe low morale at times.
I have nothing against, and I'm very happy with my coach, Warsofsky, early in this year. But if you tell me Jared Bednar becomes available on the market, I think every team in the NHL should be calling. The Sharks should be calling. This man has, I mean, he's got the Triple Crown, basically, won at every level. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like this is a legitimate coach who's won everywhere along the line, and he did it, like you said, very quickly in a rebuild. So that's where I'm like, hey, the Sharks are in a rebuild. You telling me we'll be in the Stanley Cup in 2 years if we hire Bednar? Like, no offense, Coach Warsofsky, but hey, I'm gonna take my chance on that. So Avs fans, you better give your coach some love. Give him some respect and don't be rooting for him to go away, because I guarantee you there are a lot of NHL teams out there who would be interested.
And I'd like to ultimately say that is a minority opinion. And as I said, I've mainly seen people congratulate and more say, oh, Jared Bednar should be nominated for the Jack Adams if the Avalanche are really able to fully turn this season around. So that is the majority thought. And the minority is more saying that his job is in danger, but I really don't see it in any way. I think the management is smarter than to know that Jared Bednar is the problem here. But moving on, here's our final portion of this Avalanche branded segment, the Avalanche. So the Avalanche actually, once again, have the most points by defenseman at 63. That was at the time of, I believe, the start of the Lightning game. Which continues to play to their identity of defensemen being able to be active in their offense. The Avalanche also have 3 30-point scorers through their first 21 games. The only other time that this ever happened was in 1982 and 83 when the 3 Stastny brothers joined Michel Goulet, current Hall of Famer, by the way, on the Quebec Nordiques. So it's never even happened in Avalanche history. despite, those amazing lineups of Hayduk, Sakic, Forsberg. Never happened until right now. So in Avalanche history, we have some
Oh, and that's not even
yeah,
our fun fact of the evening.
I
Wow,
know.
that's actually a cool fun fact.
That's why this is the Avalanche section. Dom, we have some Goober Goal alerts. Boys, Goober Goal. They had 2 Goober goals this week. The first was their first goal against the Panthers. Makar fans on his initial shot attempt. The puck gets politely passed back to him despite being rained down upon by Panthers players. He whips it towards the net where it bounces off of Officer Bob, then off of Drouin for his first and later second of the season. The other came in the blowout to the Lightning where Ivan Squared was able to get his second of the game by launching it towards the net, ringing it off the post, and then it goes off of a careless foot by Braden Point, who was just idly skating by. And frankly, those were the only type of goals that were going to go in for the Avalanche during that game. Well, speaking of Jonathan Drouin, it is official that he is out week to week with an upper body injury after just returning to the lineup. It honestly just feels par for the course. Beyond womp womp. It just feels par for the course. The absolutely rotten health luck that the Avalanche have been stuck with for the last several seasons ever since the Cup win. We can only hope for a speedy recovery for Drouin and that he doesn't continue to be injured upon return. It's unclear if this was the same injury or issue that plagued him after the first game of the season against Vegas. It's unfortunate because fans, myself included, were eager to get him re-signed, which management managed to do, but we haven't really gotten to see him build on a career best season of last year, and you just honestly feel robbed. The only positive from this, and it's just speculation on my part, is it makes a deal at the end of this year, hopefully a more team-friendly one, due to his inability to play this year. Well,
Yeah, I mean it's a good thing from the potential team perspective, but you'd always rather have the guy on the
no,
ice.
exactly.
And, and more than anything, you want him to be healthy. Really quickly before you move on, Ivan Squared. Like I feel like I should have heard that before, and he needs to make some merch with that. Like in the world of NIL in college sports now, somebody would make that shirt easy. So he should get on that because that Ivan Squared, that flows off the tongue easy. That's there's something there. There's something there, man.
So fun fact, they asked Ivan if he has a middle name, and he doesn't have one. You would only hope that it would also be Ivan if he did, but no, first name Ivan, last name Ivan. He said that his dad did it because of ease. So Ivan, everybody. Gotta love him.
All right. Total side tangent, but did you ever see that episode of Family Feud with the Obus? With the one guy whose name was Obu, where his first name, middle name, and last name was Obu? Named by his father, who was also named Obu.
No, I love Family Feud though, so that's really
You have
funny.
to see it because it was you got to find it on YouTube. Everyone go find it. It's actually really funny. But they all, as like a family, started singing this little jingle they wrote about the Obus on the feud, and it was actually fired. It just made me think of that because it was like, wait, Ivan, his name is Obu, and then Steve Harvey asked his dad, "What's your name, sir?" And he's like, Obu, like from the crowd, like the audience far away, just with like an echo on it. Must watch.
That's fantastic. I believe Ivan's dad's name was also Ivan, but I will check on that while you're in the tank. But goalie rumors continue to circulate around the Avalanche now more than ever, and I solemnly swear that I will have a goalie trade analysis for next week episode, or I will shut down this podcast, and this will be the last that you ever hear from me or Dom. Sorry, Dom. So guess I got to make sure that I get that done.
Yeah, don't. I'm not going to give you Blackwood, but you can still have Vanacek if that means that we can keep going.
Nobody needs Vanacek. I love you, VTech. I'm sorry. I'm not saying that to hurt your feelings, but I want Vanacek. Nobody needs Vanacek right now.
He's actually surprisingly a trade candidate for the deadline. Since he and Blackwood both are UFAs at the end of the season, both are considered trade candidates based on how they've each performed this year.
Of course. Well, the Avalanche get to finish out their November with a gauntlet as they get to face Vegas tonight as we are recording, and then Dallas and the Oilers on a back-to-back. Thankfully, Their December schedule is a little lighter as it only has 4 games against playoff teams out of 13 games.
Well, I mean, small victories.
Exactly. Well, everyone, that is actually the conclusion of my Avalanche analysis. And if there's anything to take away from this, I don't have this written down. It's that, once again, don't panic, in that the Lightning game was awful. It felt awful. And people keep yelling at me about, you need a consistent goaltender. But from everything that I've been seeing, Georgiev is demonstrating that consistency ability. And I don't think it's fair that after a bad game that everybody's getting reamed all of a sudden, especially the goaltending. Every goalie has bad fucking games. Connor Hellebuck got lit up for 6 against the Panthers. So don't go telling me that that our goalies don't allow or get allowed a bad game. Yes, it's a little bit more scrutiny because of how they started the year, but all things considered, with all the victories that Georgiev has been stringing together both on the road and at home, I think he deserves your benefit of the doubt, at least for now. I do still hold my opinion firm that he will not be with the Avalanche next year, but right now, just believe in the guy. I can tell he really is trying and doing his best out there. And he was definitely not the reason that the Lightning scored 3 goals in the second period of that game. So just keep your heads up, Avs fans. The fact that the Avalanche beat the reigning Stanley Cup champions, they took away a tough victory against the Caps, and they're remaining competitive in all of their games. Keep your heads high. It's going to be okay.
It is. It is going to be okay, Avs fans. And you know what? Worst case scenario, you only got to deal with Georgie for the rest of the season. It's only another like 55, 60 games. And
But
then it's
also,
postseason.
but
And then
also,
postseason's always fun.
but also the Avalanche are winning more than they're losing right now, everyone. So just keep that in mind.
Jealous. Hello. Sharks over here. We would love that. So, don't get greedy over there, Avs fans.
Well, Dom, I actually picked up an interesting factoid about your boys from The Athletic. Quote, the Sharks are racking up goals with the goalie out, scoring a league-leading 6 times at 6-on-5. So evidently, according to your stat from last week about your boys during 5-on-4, whenever the Sharks aren't playing 5-on-5, they are evidently playing better.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, our 5-on-4 play isn't great. I mean, we're better 4-on-5 than we are 5-on-4, ironically. But
That's what I'm saying.
that's yeah. Like, what is it about that we can't do 5-on-4 with all of that extra open ice, but somehow 6-on-5 we can keep converting? And you know what? The answer is ding, ding, ding. Let's see if you guessed it correct. It's throwing pucks at the net because things just happen, bounces happen, rebounds happen. They're getting too cute on their power play, and I'm sure I'll have plenty of time to get into this in the tank, but I just want them to throw pucks at the net. And you know what? They have been a bit more this past week, so I'm going to be actually happy to say that.
Well, Dom, that's great because it's time for In the Tank with Dom.
Jumped the gun a little bit, but I'm so happy to be in the tank with you all again, and we're gonna skip over the Dallas game. I covered it some live time. There were 2 empty netters. It was just ugly at the end. Dallas, we gave them a run for their money. The final score was 5-2. So I talked about how not losing games by 3, and we proceeded to lose the game by 3. But you know what? Coach was trying to get us back in it, and we have been so good 6-on-5. Why not go for it? Sometimes you get bit. It is what it is. No need to go much deeper into the Dallas game. So I'm going to start with the second day of that back-to-back on the 21st, so 6 days ago from when we are recording this, against the St. Louis Blues on the road in St. Louis. And really, there's nothing I can say before just jumping to the fact that Askarov conceded a goal 11 seconds into this game. And he had a stellar night. But I don't know about you, Corey, but I have a pet peeve, and it is when goaltenders go behind the net. I know it is part of their job, and they're trying to slow down the puck and set up a pass and make it easier to exit the zone, but it gives me so much anxiety. As a Sharks fan, I've seen it go wrong so many times, and this was a perfect example because Askarov really threw the puck away to the wrong team and set up the easiest goal you'll ever see for the St. Louis like 3rd or 4th line. I don't know. Players that don't get on the score sheet very often had the easiest goal ever because he just threw it to them. So it gives me so much anxiety, ire, hatred for goalies that just need to go behind the net. And let me say, Askarov, it was great to see him playing with the Sharks. He's back with the AHL now that VTech, we're not going to carry 3 goaltenders on the roster all season long. So Vanacek should be back in net here soon, it looks like. But it was really great to get to see Askarov in the net, and he played really well overall. The future is very bright in San Jose. This kid is good. Like, we saw it at the AHL level, but he is good. If he's gonna go behind the net, he needs to work on it, because in every game he played this past week, he was sloppy, and it gave me, like, I always have anxiety when a goaltender goes behind the net to play the puck, but I had so much more anxiety with Askarov than with other goaltenders. Like, it was a lot. So, if he's going to do that, they need to work on it with him. Nabokov is a great goaltending coach, great goalie, probably the best goalie in the history of the Sharks, to be fair. So it should be something that we can get straightened out, especially with vision on the ice and being able to maybe have better passes. That was something that Nabokov always had. But, oh my God. If he's going to go play the puck, he needs to do a better job of it. That's just what I got to say for the start of this game. Corey, did you see that at all, that first goal that was 11 seconds in? Because it was painful for me.
I didn't see it, but I did hear about it. And, maybe he was just a little nervous. This is his first. Well, I was going to say it's his first NHL game, but I guess that's not true. So I'll still go with maybe he was a little nervous, because I did see he managed to really kind of lock it down after that and going forward. But you said Nabokov is your goaltending coach, which I didn't know. He is the father of our goalie prospect, Ilya Nabokov, who hopefully will be over from the KHL sooner rather than later.
Yeah, look at our star-crossed franchises, bud. But yeah, Nabokov, really great goaltender, really great goaltending coach. That prospect of yours in Ilya Nabokov, he's going to be a good one too. So I have a feeling your goaltending woes might be resolved a bit next season, if not sooner.
Especially with Blackwood in net.
Oh, stop it. Blackwood is in our net, even if I'm not talking about him right now. Don't take him away from me. I have little to be excited about, except for this week. Overall, I'm pretty excited. Now, going back to the game, so Askarov gave up that early goal, but overall, the first period was definitely well played by the Sharks, and they did actually draw multiple power plays, including 40 seconds of 5-on-3, and they did not score on the 5-on-3, but shortly after, it was Alex Wenberg, woohoo, scoring again with the answer, the power play goal to put the Sharks on the board. It was really good, just good passing. This is what I've been wanting to see from the power play, taking more shots at the net, getting rebounds, and also throwing those at the net. But when they're passing, not overpassing the puck, if that makes any sense, Corey, it's like good, crisp passing that can set up shots, but not overly passing it back and forth that it just gets stagnant. So I feel like I lost my train of thought there, but overall the message came across. Really, that was the only note from the first period. It was kind of a little sloppy. They started the game well, like I said. They had those couple power plays. They were throwing the puck at the net, but then it started to get a little disjointed by both teams. This is where St. Louis being a bit mediocre, like I was talking about before. Neither team could really hold on to possession, so there was a lot of physicality, a lot of forechecking, a lot of neutral zone turnovers. And really, that continued in the second period, where it was very high pace, it was very high intensity, a lot of hits, and it just was overall a chaotic and disjointed period for both teams. Neither team could really get sustained offense. I want to say in the first period, both teams had something between 10 to 15 shots on goal, and in the second period, both teams combined for less than 10 total shots on goal in the second period. So
Oof.
I don't know if it was a long change. I don't know if it was just everyone was standing each other up. I mean, I was happy to see the Sharks play that defense in the neutral zone, but they could not hold on to the puck for their lives any better than the Blues could. And ultimately, all it took was a lucky bounce, a good drive to the net by Jordan. I think it's Jordan Kyrou. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he plays for the Blues. So with about 8 minutes left in the second period, Kyrou drove to the net through 2 Sharks defenders, and I don't know how he managed to do it, but a puck thrown from close to the end line, the red line, hit his stick, and it went in on Askarov. So Askarov really didn't have a shot. I didn't even see the puck. It just ricocheted in. I don't know how he got his stick on it, but that did put the Blues up 2-1. It was a good balance. It was heads up, hard work from Kyrou. Nothing I can't fault him. It seems like a lucky bounce when you're watching it, but clearly he had to fight for it through two Sharks defenders. So, game recognized game a little bit as far as that one's concerned. However, the disjointed play continued for the rest of the second period, and I felt like there was the potential for a fight in this game, and we didn't see one, but there were some tempers starting to flare, which I was not necessarily expecting between the Sharks and the Blues. This is not like an old-timey rivalry that goes back a long time, that these teams have disdain for each other, so I think it was just a little bit of a chippy, and like I said before, perhaps the best word is disjointed game from both teams that created the environment for a little bit more animosity. Ultimately, it took most of the third with the Blues still up, but Wenberg, another opportunity here. Glad you mentioned it earlier, Corey, with the 6-on-5. Wenberg did score his second goal of the game with 9 seconds left, 9, count 'em, to force overtime, and that goal did ultimately lead to a shootout. And Corey, I wonder if you can predict the outcome because the Sharks went to a shootout.
Oh boy, well then that's a guaranteed L right there. I'm very sorry.
It is a guaranteed L, and even though it was Askarov in the net instead of Blackwood, you have this hope like, hey, maybe the kid can win the skills competition. Like, I love Blackwood, and he's been playing incredible. We've talked about his third period save percentage and goals against average are like the top 3 in the league. So this is nothing against Blackwood. It's just, he hasn't won a shootout yet, and we've been in plenty. And Askarov actually, he stopped not one, but the first 2 attempts that he faced in the shootout. So it was looking really good. The Sharks did not score a single shootout opportunity, losing 0-1 on 3 attempts. When Askarov, when the rookie with all the nerves, he stopped the first 2, and they weren't bad shots either. But the Sharks, they couldn't score. Even Celebrini still can't score. Even Eklund, who's been really good in the shootout, couldn't score. Granlund, who's the best player on the team statistically right now, couldn't score. Like, Jordan Binnington celebrated a bunch.
Beanie
I've already
boy.
expressed. Yeah, I've already expressed I don't like Binnington. Like, I just don't like him as a person, as a player. Like, his character irks me sometimes with how much he's thrown fits, and I know he's matured since then, but it left a lasting impression that I don't see enough growth from him. So watching him get to celebrate instead of Askarov, who really played lights out. I mean, that one mistake at the start of the game is all I can fault Askarov for. He played really well and deserved to have that win in his first start for the Sharks. He's made 29 saves on 31 shots for a .935 save percentage in his Sharks debut.
I mean, I think that's all you can ask.
It's not his NHL debut, but that is a really great stat line. The fact that he stopped the first 2 opportunities in the shootout, I mean, if the Sharks convert both of those, it's game over. Like, that's all they have to do is put the puck in the net. That's the easy part. Stopping the puck's the hard part. So he did everything he could to put the team on his back, and they just couldn't show up for him. And once again, the shootouts remain the Sharks' kryptonite. They are, unlike teams that might be undefeated, they are entirely and completely defeated on the season, taking 1 point from every shootout. I believe they've been in 6 of them now. It's either 5 or 6. It's 5. They've been in 5 shootouts, or 4 shootouts. They have 5 OT losses. I don't know. Something along the lines. They've lost every single shootout. That's the point here that matters. Going on to a bit of a
if you don't mind if I interject on that, that was ultimately what I wanted to say with your Detroit game, and I've noticed it's a theme with your boys, and I'm not trying to obviously shit on them, but it's just the lack of finishing ability, especially when they're able to pull ahead. Obviously, some of those shootouts are because they've gained the momentum, they've come back in the game, and they've scored 6-on-5, and they've made it to the OT. But other times, they've managed to get the go-ahead goal, they're ahead, and they just can't hold out, and they end up losing games that they were inevitably very close to winning. And it's frustrating to watch because I feel like they can win a few more of these games. They've had them in the bag, and then they end up going to OT, they can't finish, and then they just get an automatic loss in the shootout. That's ridiculous.
It really is an automatic loss. They are at 7-12-5 And when I say 5 OT losses, and like I said, I believe 4 of those are shootouts. Imagine a world where they are 11, 12, and 1.
Exactly.
That puts them at 23 points with like Seattle, 1 point out of the Western wild card. Now, I know this is me being hopeful and everything, but the fact is it's right there. It's that close. It's not it is beyond overtime. It is untimed hockey. Like it just takes a couple better shots. And I do mean literally just 2 per shootout better. And that's the difference. So, it's painful. Ultimately, what it means is maybe we'll get a better draft pick and we can come back at them next year. But yeah, what I want to see is I want to see the Sharks in overtime instead of playing this possession, boring, circle back hockey style that a lot of teams are playing in overtime. I want to see them out there going for it. If you're going to lose in the shootout anyway, who cares if you give up a 2-on-0 opportunity? You've got Blackwood and Askarov in net. Maybe you'll still make the save anyway and then set up your own odd man rush. I want to see them taking more chances in overtime, honestly, because they have a better chance of winning. Admittedly, sure, they have a decent chance of losing as well when they take extra chances, but I feel like their odds of winning in a shootout are about, 4-1 when it comes down to it. So I'll take the chance of, being a little riskier in OT. I mean, you still get 1 point either way. You got nothing left to lose at that point.
Yep.
But maybe that's just me, Corey. Is that just me being a desperate Sharks fan, or
no?
Is that?
I think you're 100% right. And I mean, like I said, it's frustrating that your boys, when they're ahead, can't finish. But and then if they manage to come back, which they're obviously really good at doing, to make it go into the OT, they just can't allow themselves to go into the shootout. Because I mean, if you lose, you're still getting the 1 point anyway. So you might as well take those extra risks. Because I mean, let's all be honest, the Sharks are not making the playoffs, so they might as well do everything in their power to try things, to see if it works, to see if it doesn't work. Because what the fuck do they have to lose if it doesn't work? Just try it.
Exactly. There's nothing to lose. But with that, I do want to switch over to the game on the 23rd. So this would have been 2 nights later at home in San Jose on, guess what? It's Joe Thornton Day. For those who don't know, in San Jose every year, November 23rd is officially Joe Thornton Day, and that is the day that Jumbo Joe's jersey was retired and hung in the rafters in San Jose. There was a beautiful, albeit hour and a half long ceremony preceding the game where Jumbo and his family all pressed the button at the same time to lift his jersey into the rafters. Definitely gave me, from what I saw of it, I admittedly did not get to see the whole thing. Bad. But from what I saw of it, it definitely reminded me some of Patrick Marleau and his jersey retirement just a year prior. So great to see our 2 great longtime franchise heroes having their numbers retired and up in the rafters. Joe absolutely deserves to join Marleau up there. And it's just great to see him continuing to be active around the franchise. As, let's call it, an alumni, the fact that he is still putting up Macklin Celebrini, like Macklin Celebrini is living with Jumbo Joe and his family. Like, I just want to give a shout out to his wife and kids for being on board with that, supportive, to be able to provide that environment for a rookie to transition to the NHL. I believe Patrick Marleau is hosting Will Smith as well, for the record. I don't know as for certain on that one, but I'm 90% sure. But I think that's really cool that the Sharks are doing that to help their youngsters transition to the NHL with their old veterans, and really, really a classy offer by those veterans, those retired players, to extend that offer and allow them to stay there with them. And it's having a full-size adult child in the house, basically. So that is a big undertaking, and so I want to give a huge shout out to those families for being willing and able to support that, because I think it's played a positive impact on what we've seen Celebrini and Will Smith to start the season. So, Corey, do you have anything to add to that, perhaps?
I mean, yeah, I think that's how you learn as a player, and I think that's what keeps a lot of the unofficial rules and hockey culture alive from those days, is living with those retired veterans, because that's why you want to always bring those veteran presences to the young teams. So when you get to live with someone who's considered a Sharks great, a Sharks legend, I think you can learn a lot about not only hockey culture and how to play the game, but about being in the city and the team culture as well. So I think it's pretty critical for somebody of Macklin Celebrini's caliber to be living with Jumbo Joe. I think he'll ultimately learn a lot, just like you said.
And I think we've seen it already on the ice. You hit the nail on the head there, and it's a good program. I think if other teams in the league aren't doing that right now, they should be. I think it makes it easier, especially when these kids are getting younger and younger as they're making the break into the NHL. It's hard. That we've talked about it, how sometimes it doesn't happen as much anymore, but it can be physical. Where we saw Bedard, McDavid, these guys got targeted a little bit with hard hits, so just being mindful, being able to adjust to the culture wise makes it also easier to be accepted as an equal rather than target practice out on the ice. But anyway, getting to the actual game versus Buffalo, and the Sharks were started this game strong. They were leading 2-1. And ultimately, we talked about not finishing games. The final score of this one was ultimately a loss 4-2. Very disappointing that they could not bring home the win for Jumbo with him and his family in-house. But let's focus on the positives first, because that's what happened first in this game. And it was a really strong start to the first, Corey. I mean, they could have put 4 goals in the net in the first if they had just gotten some better bounces or luckier breaks, because the Sharks were on their toes. They had 9 of the first 10 shots on goal combined in the first 8.5 minutes of the game. So they were
Wow.
up 9-1 on shot opportunities through almost the first half of the first period. They were on their toes, strong forecheck, pushing Buffalo back in their own zone. This is part of the reason why I couldn't rank Buffalo higher, because the Sharks were really taking it to them and looked like the better team on the ice, at least early in this game. It was Fabian Zetterlund who actually registered the first goal halfway through the first period, so not long after that 8.5 minute stat I mentioned. It was off a rebound from a Wallman point shot. So this is what I've said time and time again. Any hockey knowledgeable person will say, throw pucks at the net and good things happen. And the Sharks are finally, it feels like, starting to do that, where they're not getting as cute with it, trying to do all these passing plays and weaving through the zone. Just throw the puck at the net and chase it. Just play good positional hockey. And that's what got them the goal. Fabian Zetterlund had a wide open net, easy shot, easy goal, just because he was in the right place at the right time. And Wallman threw the shot at the net. Goalie Reimer, he's a former Shark in net. He's a good goalie. He kicks out the save. He's doing what he's supposed to do, kicking it out to the side, and Fabian was just right there to put it back. So that's how you win hockey games, is by doing that. However, another one of the Sharks' kryptonite, which is giving up goals after they score, and those second shift, that happened again. The Sabres got the goal right back less than 90 seconds later. That post-goal nap struck the Sharks D yet again. And I don't know what it is, Corey. I don't know how this happens. I don't know why this happens. When you score a goal, you have all the energy, you have all the momentum. You should be playing your best hockey, ready to pour it on. And this is something where the Sharks, all year, where they just struggle to play with the lead and really concede the goal right back just to be tied. It's like they score and then say, okay, now you tie it up so we can go about the game again. We don't know how to play if we're ahead by 1. So, that was disappointing. I actually have a sad face typed in my phone right here as I look through my notes. So, that is continuing to be disappointing. I don't really have any good analysis to say about it, because I don't know, again, what the root cause of the problem is, other than it's just a mental, it's a falling asleep at the wheel. It's you have the momentum, don't hand it away. I don't know what it is to pinpoint, to point out. It needs to change. I can't say it's coaching. I can't say if it's the players. Is it defensemen? Is it offensemen? I don't know, Corey. That's the problem. I wish I could break it down in analysis and point out something that was like, hey, this player, this pattern, this is the problem. It just, the overall pattern is a problem, but I can't get to the source of it. I can't get to the roots. So maybe I need to spend more time looking over the film over and over again, but I'm really at a loss why that keeps happening, and it is frustrating as a fan to keep watching. Luke Cunnin, though, he tried to get the team's energy back into it. Not long after, he and Sam Lafferty had a brief go. He had a great physical legal check, Cunnin did on Lafferty late in the first period, and Lafferty did not like it. And apparently in the NHL these days, if you get hit with a hard but legal hit, that means you got to be ready to fight. So, I love fights in the NHL. I'm happy about it. I think it's a great thing for the sport. It's entertaining for the fans. So I'm not complaining. I just think it's
But
interesting
sometimes
that
you're like, please just play the fucking game. Yes, I know what you mean.
yeah, don't be a baby about it. Like it's not like it was a dirty hit. Hits that are very clean, high quality hits that back in the day, just both teams look up and are like, "Damn, okay, nice hit." Now those are hits that people fight over instead of going toe to toe over dirty hits, which I guess maybe that means dirty hits are down, and that's a good thing, so that we're getting our fight quota in another way because the dirty hits are down some. But I don't necessarily feel like dirty hits across the league are down, but maybe that's something I need to spend more time looking into. So, hey, a fight's a fight. Cunnin went for it, and later, 4 minutes into the second period, Luke actually scored a goal to make it 2-1. So he was really a talisman for the team playing on, I think he's still playing on the fourth line. So he was really putting in some hard minutes, bringing some energy. That's what we want to see from fourth liners. We want to see them scrapping. We want to see them be physical. We want to see them take their goal opportunities when they come because they don't come very often. So a great game from Luke Cunnin overall, making it 2-1. It was a great effort in front of goal. Right after the offensive zone faceoff, he went just straight to the front of net, ready to screen the eyes, got the puck on his stick with a tip and into the back of the net. So great fundamental hockey right there. Something I do have to call out from this game is I mentioned that James Reimer, he is a former Sharks goalie, and I have seen him play, and he is a good goaltender. Corey, have you seen the highlight reel save that I'm about to talk about? It is quite possibly the best save of the year.
Is it the one where he like did the spin around catch? Was that one?
Yes, so he made some
I have
insane
seen it.
saves.
I have seen
Macklin
it.
Celebrini just steps in, marching in, wide open lane to Reimer and slaps it. He makes the save off his, I think it went off like the wrist part of his glove, and it started to bounce behind him. And so he made the first save, and then as it's going behind him, he turns, tracks it with his eye. You can see his head twist, and he just flips his wrist the other way behind him and catches it behind his back. Like his glove is entirely behind his back. Celebrini is there with his hands up like behind his head thinking he had just scored a for sure goal. I thought he had just scored a for sure goal. Like you never have a better opportunity than the young superstar walking in on net with that lethal shot of his. And wow, I tip my cap, sir, because that was, I believe, the best save so far on the year. Like on true merit. Like sure, we have great saves, lucky saves where the end of the stick catches it, or the stick laying down on the ice. Like I think you sent me one, Corey, where the puck just was skating across the ice and it hit the goalie stick behind Ottinger, but not him actually holding the stick. So that was lucky. This one was on pure merit effort save where he was able to track the puck the whole way and catch it. I think this is a video that needs to be linked in the description because people have to see it to just understand what I'm saying right now. And I can find the video link and send it to you, Corey, if you need me to.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it was a crazy save.
So,
there's been several good save of the year candidates already, and we're only 21 games in.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. And maybe, to be fair, maybe I haven't seen them all, but this is 100% in the running for save of the year. And it was a powerful Celebrini shot. Celebrini was having himself a decent game overall. So Reimer really stood tall between the pipes for Buffalo, and I think he was the key piece that actually ultimately got them the win. It wasn't until early in the third period that Buffalo tied the game at 2. They had a strong screen right in front of Blackwood, and it it allowed the shot to make it into the corner. Like Blackwood never saw it, so the screen was just barely outside of the blue paint. It looked like he made contact with Blackwood, but he was outside of the paint. Blackwood was definitely out a little far, trying to close out as much of that distance. It was just, like I said, strong physical play in front of the net, good screen. Blackwood never saw it as it went to the opposite corner. Great shot. I have nothing bad to say against Buffalo. It's good fundamental hockey. I would love to see the Sharks do that more, if anything. Then it was Alex Tuck, someone who formerly played for Vegas, so he knows how to play against the Sharks and beat them often. So I'm not a fan of his just for that reason. He poured on the pain with a shorthanded goal for the Sabres to make it 3-2 with 14:30 left in the game. It was just poor play to let the puck exit the zone like that when you're in the offensive zone. And then straight up, I forget which Sharks defender it was, but he lost the race man on man to Alex Tuck, who was able to get in 1-0 on Blackwood and beat him low to the blocker side after winning the foot race. So it was just, it was a big no-no as far as I'm concerned. You're on the power play. You should be scoring, not giving up goals. That's one. Like we love shorties when they happen for us, but we don't want to give up shorthanded goals when it's our turn to be on the power play. But that was just an effort and hustle play, and Alex Tuck had more effort and hustle, so good on him. But it was disappointing and frustrating to watch as a Sharks fan. And really, I think this summarized the game. Is the first and second periods overall, I know it was 2-2 after 2 periods, but overall the Sharks were the better team. They had a lot of good chances that just they hit the post multiple times. They had that insane save from Reimer. He came up with a couple other big saves. Like the Sharks were really pouring it on and just couldn't get the puck to go in the back of the net, and sometimes that happens. But they were the better team through the first 2 periods. However, the third period was far more open for the Sabres. They were getting a lot more room on the ice. They were taking advantage of opportunities. And the Sharks, again, with like that power play opportunity that became a shorthanded goal, were just a little sloppy out there. So ultimately, they, like you said, they handed this game away. And yes, Reimer absolutely took it. When we've talked about giving up the ice and being willing to take it, the Sabres stood up and said, thank you very much. And they took the ice that the Sharks gave them. Reimer took all the shot opportunities he could gobble up, and an empty netter was scored off a bounce off the boards just before the final buzzer. Like, I shit you not, like less than 2 seconds before the end of the game to make it 4-2. So Buffalo has now won 5 straight games against the Sharks, including games both in San Jose and in Buffalo. So good on the Sabres. That was not a pretty win, but sometimes you got to win ugly, and that's what keeps teams like Buffalo in the playoff hunt as they are right now, whereas the Sharks are losing some of these ugly games and are sitting down in last place in the Pacific, but not last overall, thankfully.
All right, nothing to add here. Continue on, my friend.
Well, this game actually, for all of you, I wish I could have seen. I was battling a massive migraine during the LA Kings at San Jose Sharks game on the 25th, just 2 nights ago. I was down bad, to say the least. It was not a good time up in my brain, and thankfully Cory was able to watch the Sharks game for me. And
what's
and
so funny, Dom, is I watched the first 2 periods and then I stopped watching.
Oh no, so you didn't even see all the excitement.
Well, what was funny is I had the sound bar on, and so from the other room I could just hear over and over again when the third period started.
Yeah, so unfortunately, apparently, when I have migraines, I just need to go to bed, and the Sharks are going to absolutely trounce their opponent. I guess that's the key. So sorry to all my fellow Sharks fans. I guess I've been watching too much Sharks hockey. I'm an unintentional jinx, not actually, but whatever. But anyway, versus the Kings, the Sharks pounced early in this game with a goal from Nico Sturm. It was a really great stretch pass from Mario Ferraro to allow Sturm in one-on-one with a goaltender. I was very happy to see this on the highlights. It was perfectly timed passing to not be offside, and Askarov getting the start in net also got the assist on that first goal. I think you would have seen that one, Cory.
I did, I think, send you that Askarov managed to pick up the assist, so that was pretty. Well, it was just, it was so funny because for the first few periods, I was like, this is just a typical hockey game. Nothing weird about this. The Kings are doing okay. The Sharks are staying in it. That's great. And then it was just an utter meltdown by the Kings in the third. So really, at the end of the day, nothing happened in the first 2 periods. Those are meaningless. Those are boring compared to the absolute offensive Avalanche-like explosion of your boys in the third. I think they racked up 5 in the third.
They did indeed. They had 5 in the third. It was an avalanche of goals, one could say, as you suggested, Corey. So going through just to give the full summary, the Kings did score early in the second, moving left to right, threading it back under Askarov's right pad. So move right, throw the shot left, basic hockey 101. Great way to beat a goaltender. That's what my dad taught me to do back when he played goalie. So good fundamental hockey from the Kings there. Can't fault them. They did score a cheap goal, and I believe you said so as well when you texted me, Corey. It was on a broken play in front of the net to go up 2-1. Not Askarov's fault, but again, in this game, there were some dicey moments where I thought Askarov had his passing, his turnovers in his own zone were a little bit stressful for me watching the highlights. But you are correct. Wrapping up the second, Zetterlund with a second effort and bounced the puck in from behind the net off of the Kings defender. So it was a hard-fought game through 2 periods with both teams unsuccessful on the power play. 2-2 going to a third period, and this is where typically you'd be like, uh-oh, we're in the third period, so the Sharks are going to make a lot of saves, but does that mean we're going for overtime and a shootout and the Sharks take 1 point and nothing more? And that was not the case, as we've said, Corey, because Askarov stood tall. I mean, the Sharks were outshot in this game by like 3. It was only like 24. They scored 7 goals on 21 shots in this game, Corey. I don't know if you realize just how good the Sharks offense was in this third period, because they poured it on in the third, starting with Celebrini just 1 minute in, going top shelf without even looking at the net. He was looking to his right, looking like fake a pass, and he flicked it without looking. He did not see the net, see the goal until after he had already shot it. This kid is unreal. Like, Celebrini, he is amazing. I still need to get that jersey. I want it. It is going to happen because every Sharks fan needs one, and every Sharks fan knows it. That kid is the future of our franchise, and thank God that we get to draft him. Next up, scoring was Lil Jagrin with a blast from the point just over 2 minutes into the third. So instead of the Sharks giving up a goal a minute after scoring, this game against the Kings, they finally figured it out that, hey, when you get the momentum, pour it on, jump on that momentum, make the other team feel it. And Lil Jagrin just threw it at the net from the point, and it went straight in. No tip, no nothing. It was a great shot off. It was a great assist as well from Will Smith. And Ferraro, the other defenseman, his D partner, setting a screen in front. Not often that you have a defenseman right in front of the goaltender for the offensive team. So props to Mario, because he's taken a lot of pucks this season, blocked a lot of shots on defense. So to see him taking that risk and going to the front of the net, really out of position, it was a baller move, to say the least. So that put the Sharks up 4-2. The Kings actually did challenge for goaltender interference on that goal, saying that Mario Ferraro somehow interfered. I think they were trying to capitalize on the fact that it was a defenseman, but he was nowhere near the blue paint. He did not touch Riddick, the goaltender. So it was really a weak challenge, and gave a free power play to the Sharks. And that power play, it wasn't long before it became a 5-on-3. And finally, the Sharks could convert on a 5-on-3. Celebrini set up by Eklund to give Macklin a wide open net for his second goal of the night. After that first shot, which was just going top shelf, goaltender taking up a lot of room, and Macklin threaded the needle. This one, the Mac attack had nothing in his way to just absolutely slam that second goal of the night home, making it 5-2. I must say, I really love the combo of Eklund and Celebrini on the power play unit. I get it. Celebrini and Will Smith have had a lot of chemistry. They're playing great together on a line together through most of the game. But when Eklund and Celebrini are on the same line on the power play, like, it needs to happen more. I don't know why we don't see it more with the power play. I think they're on 2 different units typically, but for 5-on-3, they were on the same unit, and it is fireworks on the ice, because Eklund is a really good passer, Corey. Like, he's a great shooter. He's got a lot of hustle, but I don't think he gets enough credit for just how good of a passer he is, his hockey sense, for being such a young player. I know he's not technically a rookie, but he's going to be the underappreciated player who's going to be a huge cog to the rebuild for the franchise. Like, when we think about the previous, like, big 3 of Jumbo Joe, Marlowe, and Pavelski, which one did you think was like the smallest of that three-headed monster for us previously?
Probably Joe.
Yeah. So
Or Joe
that's going to be
Pavelski. I just
yeah,
realized Joe
yeah. No,
Pavelski.
I knew you would have said Jumbo if you were talking Thornton. So you're right. It was Pavelski. He was just a hard worker who had great passing, great hockey sense, showed up as a captain. I see Eklund as the future captain of this hockey team, of this franchise. I mean, Couture, he still hasn't taken the ice. He still technically wears the C, but I don't know if we're going to see him again this year. I don't know if we're going to see him again, period. His rehab, his recovery from multiple surgeries, it's hard to find information, which tells me enough that it's not been good if he can't even skate on the ice. So looking ahead to the future and focusing on the positives, I think Eklund is that captain in the making. I think he is that Pavelski in the making, and that hopefully Will Smith and Celebrini become our Marlowe and our Thornton, and we can have another 10, 15 years of great hockey in San Jose in just a couple years' time here. But I will sing Eklund's praises because I just don't think he gets enough credit, especially for his, again, great passing. I know we are in the tank a while here, so I'll wrap this up here. With 9:15 left in the period, the Sharks were given a 4-minute penalty, 4-minute power play. Assuming it was a high stick that drew blood, I didn't actually see what the penalty call was. Ultimately, what mattered? Wenberg going out there, winning those offensive zone faceoffs again, like he did earlier in the year against Utah to get the first win. He won the faceoff back to Wallman, who threw the shot at the net, and Wenberg doing smart hockey. I talked about it earlier, but you win the faceoff, you drive the net, someone just throws the puck at the net. Wenberg with the tip in, a goal 5 seconds into the double minor penalty. Really just great fundamental play, taking more wind out of the Kings' sails if they had any left, because that made it 6-2. And then less than 2 minutes left, and Luke Kunin was feeling left out, and he wanted to get on the board. So with a great solo effort, he went through not one, not two, but 3 defenders on his own to put the Sharks up 7-2 in a blowout of the Sharks' oldest rival, the California rival of the Kings. And, what a great way. Askarov was denied his first victory in that shootout loss to the Blues. The team let him down in the shootout. They did not tonight. Askarov with his first San Jose Sharks victory on the night, 22 saves on 24 shots. So nothing extremely fancy or special, but not pedestrian by any means either. Still with a .917 save percentage overall. And the Sharks just put up a ton of goals. I mean, what is that? 7 goals on 21 shots. That's scoring on 33% of the shots that made it to the net. So this is why I say over and over again, and I'm sure you agree with me, Corey, throw the puck at the net and good things happen. Tell me I'm wrong.
You are definitely not, and I'm glad your boys were able to get a victory like that, because it takes a little bit of the heat off the Avs, who also got blown out. So everybody pay attention to the Kings. They got blown out by the Sharks. We at least got blown out by a current playoff team, so don't feel too bad.
Fair enough. And you know what? Every year, every team has at least one blowout and blows out at least one team. The Sharks have been blown out twice on the year, once by Vegas and once by Winnipeg. So not bad teams to necessarily get blown out by, although I'm never happy for the Sharks to lose to Vegas in any capacity. But, they were due for a blowout victory. They were due to exercise some demons, especially on an old-time rival in LA. So I think it was a very fitting way to end the analysis for the week, and it looks like we'll be wrapping up in time tonight that I can actually watch their game against Ottawa, which, at home against another bad team low in the East should be a winnable game. I hope to bring some good news to everyone next week.
Well, that is fantastic. Thank you so much for your time in the tank, Tom. Well, we got some time for some quick news around the league. We'll try and keep everything to a sentence or two here. So first and foremost, Paul Bissonnette. It wouldn't surprise me if everybody hasn't already heard this story, but Paul Bissonnette was assaulted in a restaurant in Scottsdale, Arizona. He was dining out when he noticed a group of men harassing the staff who he was good friends with. So Paul Bissonnette, standing up for a lot of the female staff members, basically tried to help the assistant manager move the gentleman out of the building when 6 guys jumped him. Thankfully, he got some, gave some back, and ended up ultimately being okay. He spoke about it on the Spit and Chicklets podcast. So I'll link an article. You can read it pretty much anywhere if you look it up, but go listen to the story yourself. It is pretty wild. Patrick Laine is one step closer as he is now practicing in a normal jersey with the Habs. I think he may provide a spark to a floundering team. Dom, I think you had a couple quick points to touch on. Yes?
I do. Let me pull those back up. So the first one I already mentioned. I know this one's easy to rattle off the top, but unfortunately, it is not good news for Ovechkin. He is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. He fractured his fibula, so that's a big loss for the Capitals and a big hit to the potential Ovechkin passing Gretzky all-time goals record this year. It is still definitely doable, but let's see how long that rehab takes and if he has that same offensive prowess with which he started the season, because it's always hard to get back into that groove. Another key injury for Carolina this time, Freddie Anderson underwent knee surgery and will be out of the net for 8 to 12 weeks for Carolina. So that is a long time loss. It'll open up a big void and right in front of the net for Carolina. They have been playing well without him so far, so maybe it'll be okay. I feel like he has been an inconsistent goaltender, so maybe they will see some good prospect opportunities there. But that's obviously a big loss no matter the case. And then I kind of already said it during the Pittsburgh game, but or Pittsburgh coverage of the power rankings, but Crosby has been, let's just say, really frustrated. Saw him in his first fight I've seen in a long time in a game. I caught that little clip on YouTube, but also he got thrown out for saying something to the ref and then proceeded to say what for, and the ref threw on an extra 10-minute game misconduct for asking what the fuck for. So I don't know why the refs feel the need to pour on Crosby and the Penguins after they've already had such a horrible season. I know, Corey, I texted you about this, but Crosby has way more composure than I did, because if the ref threw me out for nothing, I'd do something to ref to make sure I got my due and take my multiple game suspension and be happy about it. So I'm going to leave it there and let y'all infer what I would do.
Goodness me. Well, everyone, it's time for our fun fact of the day. This is from Sportskeeda. The article will be linked in the description, or Sportskeeda. The article will be linked in the description if you wish to give it a read for yourself. But I was curious, as there are no games tomorrow, if the NHL has ever played on Thanksgiving. Well, because the NFL having a firm stranglehold on Thanksgiving, the NHL opts not to compete and rather create a loaded lineup the Wednesday night before and the Friday after American Thanksgiving, dubbing it the Thanksgiving Showdown. The league highlights games between two powerhouses. This year, there are two, the Capitals and Lightning and your Avalanche versus the Golden Knights. Unfortunately, it looks like we'll never enjoy turkey and pucks on the same day.
Wah, wah, wah. Oh well, we have plenty to be thankful for, and you know what? I'm sure all of the pros in the NHL are thankful to have the opportunity to spend times with their family on Thanksgiving Day. So, you know what? Maybe it's a good thing, and we'll just have to be patient and wait a day.
I guess so. Well, everyone, the clock is counting down to the final horn. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this episode of the Captain Avalanche Fancast. Did you know there is a comment section where you can leave your thoughts and questions? If you have something you want to know about the Avalanche, Sharks, or just hockey in general, leave it below and we'll be happy to try and answer it. There's also a unique poll for you to interact with every episode. The best thing you can do if you like what we're doing here is to follow us on whatever platform you're using and to share this podcast everywhere you can, whether that's with your mouse or your mouth. I'm Captain Avalanche Cory.
And this is Dom from the Tank.
Check out our new episodes every Thursday. Thanks, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving.